Maybe I'll go back to this idea about Sayed not endorsing the idea of Israel as a Jewish state, which was a big issue for Mamdani too, and I think it was a big focus of the opposition to both of them. If if Donald Trump said tomorrow that he wants America to be a Christian and democratic state, I would think that you would say, I see a conflict between these two things. I, as an American Jew, don't think I could be equal in a country that is explicitly Christian and has a special legal obligation to Christians that is superior to its legal obligation to everyone else. If that's the way you and I, and tell me if I'm wrong, think about America, right? Why is it wrong to apply that principle, equality under the law, irrespective of religion, ethnicity? Why is it wrong to apply it in Israel-Palestine?
Well, because first of all, you're singling out Israel. There's so many Christian states, including England and Europe, so many states in Europe, all over the world. And there's so many Muslim states, of course, Pakistan and everywhere, and there's so many religious states. There are very few secular states, or at least amongst the major countries. But so you're first of all, there's the double standard, and I know you're aware of that. That's a red flag for anti-Semitism that you're seeing like Israel. But
Well, Abdul
really,
El-Sayed has also said he wants to cut off U.S. aid for Egypt, right? So,
I know that's the only ones he talks about Egypt because I guess
well,
he's
because I think they're number two
yeah,
in terms of the aid we get, right?
yeah.
I don't, but why can't one say, I think honestly, why can't one say that you oppose in principle Muslim? I oppose the Hindu nationalism in India of trying to make it a Hindu state, right? I oppose any government that privileges Muslims over people of another religion, and similarly vis-a-vis Christians. Although I think the level of favoritism that in Britain, let's say, or in Europe, of Christians vis-a-vis non-Christians is nowhere near what you see in Israel. But why can't we just say, as a general principle, we believe that states should treat people equally under the law, irrespective of their religion or ethnicity or race?
Well, because the truth is, I think that it's okay for some states. Some states can be religious states, and that's okay as long as people are treated basically equally. There might be a preference for religion in certain states and in certain countries. That's okay. But if he said, I think Pakistan is illegitimate for being a religious state, and Saudi Arabia, and started listing all these states, I would feel differently about it. But the truth is, he's not denying the legitimacy of Pakistan or legitimacy of Jordan or Saudi Arabia or all these Muslim states or of England. Let him hit on England. He's not denying their legitimacy. You could say, these are all legitimate states. Israel's a legitimate state. I wish we could have a world where there's no preference for religion. That's okay. Look, America also is very Christian. I mean, we follow the Constitution, but America is very Christian. I mean, Christmas is, Hanukkah. There's a little Hanukkah party in the White House, but Christmas there is a Christmas tree on the White House lawn. That's it's very Christian America. The great thing about America is that Jews can think it's secular, and fundamentalist Christians can think it's Christian, and everyone's happy. That's I think ultimately that's a really interesting kind of state. But we're very Christian here.
I mean, it's a Christian society, I agree, but it's not a sister country where you have one set of laws for people of one religion and another for another religion, as
What
you have in
about
the West
blue
Bank.
laws? Blue laws, Sundays, things are closed in all states, and they don't have Shabbos laws. And what about Christmas is a holiday that's off, and Yom Kippur is not a national holiday.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
you do
maybe
have some laws.
okay. Again, I think it's a pretty far cry from, let's say, again, the West Bank, where all the Jews have citizenship and all the Palestinians who don't have citizenship. But I guess I think, if I suspect that Abdul El-Sayed, if you said to him, do you think that people should be treated equally under the law everywhere, including Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Norway, Venezuela? Basically, he would say, absolutely, yes, that is his general principle. And my suspicion is that even if he said that 1,000 times, it wouldn't really solve the problem from the perspective of his critics in the pro-Israel Jewish side, because they don't really care about what happens in Saudi Arabia or in Malaysia or in Norway. What they really care about is preserving what I would call Jewish supremacy in Israel. They don't care about the other stuff. The other stuff is just talking point whataboutism but they don't, what they really are upset about is the fact that he wants equality under the law in Israel.
No, but you see, if he would just say, I recognize Israel is a legitimate country, a legitimate state, but I would like Israel to, and I will advocate in Congress for Israel to become equal, whatever you're saying, equal rights under the law. And I don't see it that way. And we shouldn't send aid to Israel if they're not, to any country that has that, like NATO countries, we cut off NATO aid,
Mhm.
also to all those countries that prefer some religion to another. But if he recognized the legitimacy of the Jewish state not that of Israel as a state of Israel, then I think people would relent. I think people would
I
be
mean,
okay.
Mamdani went on. Mamdani was asked about this, and I live in New York. There's as much hostility to Mamdani as there is to Al-Sayed, I think. Mamdani consistently said, they said, "Do you recognize Israel as a Jewish state?" He said, "I recognize Israel. I support Israel as a state that provides equality under the law to everybody." Right? And as I believe, as he said, as he believes in general. And I think that, frankly, that didn't buy him very much because I don't really think that because I think that the nub of the issue, again, maybe I'm wrong, but the nub of the issue is that I think the American Jewish community, its leadership has drawn a line around the idea that Israel will be a Jewish state. And so the idea of equality under the law in Israel-Palestine is anathema to them, and they oppose candidates who support the principle of equality under the law.
I don't know. I think once you recognize Israel as a legitimate
But
state,
what does it mean to be legitimate? If you disagree with its political system, then you don't agree with the legitimacy of its
well,
political system.
let me ask, why did Mamdani march in the Pakistani Independence Day parade and on the Israel? They're both states that were created as religious states, and Pakistan is much worse for non-Muslims than Israel is. Israel has a thriving, Muslim population, Christian. It's the only state in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing. So why did he march in
I,
Pakistan? There's a double
I
standard.
No, look, I don't know enough about the Pakistan Day Parade to know if that was an endorsement of the Pakistani state. I think there may be a very good, legitimate critique of him for having done that. I also think, and this is a part of where we disagree, that again, according to the International Association of Genocide Scholars, not a bunch of pikers, including some of the most prominent Israeli-born genocide scholars, Israel just committed a genocide, right? Which I do think it puts it in a different category than a kind of garden variety military dictatorship,
Oh my God.
oppressive state like Pakistan. Now, you can disagree with me, I'm just saying, but like this is
Talk
what
to my
like
Hindu friends about Pakistan, about what it's doing to its tiny Hindu population.
yeah,
They're
no,
terrible. They're
Pakistan is an oppressive country. I agree. I mean, we know that Mamdani was like super unpopular among Hindu nationalists in New York because he opposed Hindu supremacy in India. Let me turn to just something else. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
And again, I want to say, but I feel Israel fought a legitimate war, and I think it fought it more morally and more than any other country in any other war before in an urban setting. And it's just tragic that Hamas was hiding behind in hospitals, in schools. There were no schools happening, but in school buildings and behind human shields. So I totally reject this genocide accusation. Unless you say that any war where a lot of citizens die is a genocide, but that's not the definition of it.
In most wars, you don't destroy almost all the hospitals, almost all the schools, almost all the bakeries, and almost all the agriculture, and leave 90% of the people in tents if they even have tents. And under international law, even if you do have fighters in an urban area, and after all, most guerrilla groups fight within an urban area, it's not unique to Hamas, you still, under international law, have obligations in terms, you don't have the right under international law to blow up a hospital because you think that there was a Hamas guy in the hospital. If you did, then they could bomb all of the schools and infrastructure around the Kiryat because the Kiryat, Israel's military headquarters, is in the middle of an urban area surrounded by schools and restaurants and all kinds of. God forbid they would do that.
They would do that if they could. They would
Well,
definitely
would
do
it
that
be
because
right or wrong?
they if you target the Kiryat and it happens to hit other buildings, that's totally Kiryat. I think is yeah, that's of course that's a legitimate military target.
What about if you know there's a high-ranking Israeli military official who's living in an apartment building in Tel Aviv and you blow up the apartment building? Is that legitimate?
There are classic laws of proportionality that all legitimate
Yes.
countries follow. So believe me, you know the cruelty of Hamas and what they did on October 7th and the murders and rapes and
Yes,
disgusting
I
things
do.
They would do any of that. They would not care at all about any
Okay,
of it.
but that's not a justification for what Hamas might do, or even what Hamas has done is not a justification for what Israel does.
No, Israel is justified to fight the way it had to fight to defend itself. We're going to disagree on that one.